Welcome everyone back to the Weekly Source. Super excited to have you and our very own PlanSource's Ty Gowen, consumer marketing manager, Lord of Chaos, all the above. We went into. Ty, welcome to the Weekly Source.
Thanks for having me, man. I hope to bring my dark powers to you today.
As do we. Hey, so for the folks who don't know you, and full disclosure, you are LinkedIn list, so we'll find new ways to share this and get your messaging out there. But give us a sense of how you got in the industry, a bit about your background as well.
So I actually come from a carrier, so that's been super helpful here at PlanSource to see both sides of that. But how I get into the industry, I honestly kind of fell into it. In college, I was an English and arts major. After that, went to a photography studio that was not marketing well. I was just supposed to be a graphic artist there, but the person's marketing strategies were from the 80s. And so my survival at that company was also linked to getting customers to come see us. So I kind of learned marketing from this like rough strategy of survival. And from there, I've kind of built a career out of it and landed at PlanSource. So it's working out.
Being in an industry that has to continue to accelerate, I mean, you're no stranger to that. And I think that's one thing we're constantly trying to do in benefits is, especially in today's day and age, take folks off paper and adopt more into technology. But I think one thing you're doing really well on the consumer marketing side is really diving into content marketing. For the uninitiated, give us kind of the rundown of what content marketing is, what's the goal, and really what you're trying to do there.
For the past 6 or 7 years or so at that carrier that I came from, I was learning and growing my content marketing skills. So what I've been able to do is kind of take that experience from what I've learned in the field and then have studied on my own and kind of applied different tactics to PlanSource's system to increase participation, but also really work with the PlanSource system so that we can differentiate ourselves from other competitors who aren't working with employees the way that we are and messaging the way that we are and trying to reach out the way that we are. So kind of the different tactics that I've done is I've brought content marketing over internally to the system using the mindset of giving employees what they want to hear, how they want to hear it, and where they want to hear it. And that's important because a lot of regular marketing typically is almost like push marketing, where you have a message that you want to give to people. And so you just jam, use all your social channels and just try to get it out to them. Content marketing kind of flips that on its head. And it's saying, we want them to come to us and ask us why we're important. And so you have to use those 3 different tactics to try to get them hooked almost to come to you so that you can warmly provide a message and you can work together to reach a common end.
You listen to, or you watch Mad Men, the idea of, content that truly drives action, right? And then somewhere along the way we got lost and it was like SEO, stuff keywords, more. And I think you've done a great job of, hey, let's take a step back here. So just if I'm an HR person and I'm trying to think of, what are some of the best practices? I've often heard you speak to fast, short, conversational content, even this idea of behavioral economics. I mean, go into a bit of those elements and again, how an HR person can take some of this practice to what they're doing today.
So first, Mad Men, definitely if you have a tumbler of whiskey, it makes all marketing easier. So like that's definitely a best practice that never changes. But the other ones that exist in current state right now, because they always do change, the 2020 best practices that I've kind of been using for PlanSource are taking messaging and delivering content fast. You don't want people to have to sift through information to try to get to you. And I think the current stat is like, when you grab someone's attention with a headline, I think it's like 3.5 seconds is all you have to deliver your message before you could lose their interest. So delivering the highlights quickly is really important. Next up is keeping conversational tones. That's massively important too. So we want to make sure that we're talking to people like people and not using jargon that kind of dissociates them from our actual message and who we are as a company. Personalizing content is a no-brainer. That the metrics just go up if you talk to a person with their own name. or talking more specifically about the industry that they're in. The name can you can trick people know that you can fake that. But if you're talking about the industry, like if you're talking to a bus driver about transportation, they feel like you know them a little bit more because you do. And so you're delivering content that is relevant to them. And that's really what this is all about. Again, the fourth one I would say is probably keeping everything short and concise, which is different than delivering it fast. It's basically taking your whole messaging and concentrating it down to what's really important. You'll see things out there too, like gamification. So creating interactive content, it actually has a psychological impact on people remembering what you're delivering. And so with the best practices that I'm bringing to PlanSource this year, it's definitely trying to bring in quizzes, interactive infographics, tangible things that people can interact with. So when they remember the benefits experience, they're not going to remember insurance. They're going to remember touching. And then, of course, the sixth one that kind of alienates people, but I find fascinating, is incorporating behavioral economics into every bit of the PlanSource experience.
The part where we start asking if you're like a member of the FBI or you know, how you get this data, but it is really, yeah, it is you know, something that's unique is using data to our benefit, personalizing the messaging, you know, and it's conversational. I think I go speak for a lot of us when you don't like here, dear sir, here's a canned email, and you know, on the employee and experience during enrollment, it should be personalized and make sense to them as well.
Especially like if you only have 3.5 seconds, opening up with a canned response, that's not a savvy way to make people interested in your messaging. Again, you're trying to pull them in, not push them out with an email blast. So opening with a headline that has action verbiage in it, so you're almost telling them what to do immediately and then getting into your message a little bit more, again, triggers that response because your audience doesn't have to think of what they need to do next. You've directed them to the next part of the process.
Awesome. That's great. And it's something we speak to a lot with the carriers on how we're making a difference in the system. We're talking about improving the employee experience with Boost specifically. So if anything today, I think it gives people a deeper dive into what you're doing, what that actually looks like in the system. So I know it's something we're all excited for and appreciate you stopping by today. But before we let you go, tend to let our guests give, you know, some plug or something they're doing on the side. I think we'll take it outside PlanSource for you because it's super interesting. You run a haunted TV show in Maine, so Haunt ME. I do want to give you some airtime to talk through that because I'm a haunt geek and I think it's super cool. So here's your platform to our followers to come check you out.
Well, here's the part of the weekly source that either drops viewers and I discredit myself immediately, or people hop on board. So yeah, so I run the marketing for that as well. It's an indie show that's going into its 7th season now, completely and entirely self-funded from viewership. So again, that's an area where I've really had to inject hardcore marketing practices to make people pay attention to us and our content. What we do is Haunt Me, and it's a little play on words because we travel around the state of Maine, which is where I live, and investigate some of the strangest legends that exist here, some popular hauntings that go on, and it's not so much a ghost show that you'd like see on sci-fi. And so our whole theme is going in, interviewing people about their own experiences, diving deep into these legends and lore and finding where these stories came from. And then the really fun part is that we live one night in that legend. Learn the legend and live the legend. And so it's www.haunt-me.com if anyone's interested in some spooky lore while you're all at home. So
I love it. Yeah, well, for the record, I think that's super cool. But again, Ty, appreciate you swinging by today, talk all things content, consumer marketing, driving action, and a bit of haunting. But hey, for the rest of you viewing in, we'll link to Ty's site as well. But always check out some of the great things he's doing on Boost and improving the employee experience. It's something we're super excited for. So Ty, thanks for the time today. And the rest of you, we'll see you next week on the Weekly Source. Thanks.
Thanks for having me.